everyone. Hello, and thanks for watching. We started with very energetic music from Genia, one of our great speakers today. So I'm very glad to be here. I would like to welcome every one of you right now who is watching us. So it's a great pleasure to be here again. I'm very glad to get together once more, and then we have great time together, hopefully today again. So it's all about community, right? We're just talking, we're just contributing to community right now with these type of event. And thanks to all of you to support us by coming, by actually presenting, by supporting with words and a lot of other things. Thanks to you. Let me just tell you about this. The Meetup actually is following the code of conduct for sure. And that's very simple. Be nice to each other and behave very well. So let's do that. And I would like to also mention that this meetup is a collaboration between 8 meetups today. This is fantastic. Like 8 meetups is happening. They get together and they just made this happen. So let me tell their names. First, we had Flutter Oslo, Flutter Stavanger, GDGs in Oslo, Bergen, West Sweden, Trondheim, Stavanger, Sørlandet. Fantastic. So we get together and then we made this happen for you today. And regarding the talks, of course, you know that we're going to have 3 great, awesome talks from phenomenal speakers from the world of Flutter. I'm pretty sure you know all of them. So 3 talks, and then after the talks, we're going to go to the panels with all of the speakers. So if you have any question, please write in the comment and let me ask the question from our audience, from our speakers. So don't forget to write and interact in YouTube comments. I will read all of them one by one, and then I will ask questions from our speakers. And last but not least, this is all about you. This is the community-driven meetups and let's say gathering, right? So if you wish to speak, if you have something to share, please welcome. Don't hesitate to contact one of the organizers or me in person. You can find me on Twitter, on meetups.com, or I'm pretty much everywhere. So just search my name. You can find me everywhere. So, by the way, you see my name just there. And without any hesitation, you are here because of the speakers, not just me. The awesome speakers are here in backstage with me. They are happy to share their knowledge with you today. Let me just introduce the first speaker, Genia, who actually played the music for you right now. He is Director of Development of Rico. Right now he's based in Prague, I guess. And he is a Google developer expert in Dart, web, Flutter, and basically everything, right?
Well, except of Android, because I prefer web. Hi, everyone. Yeah. It's a
he's also a co-organizer of Dartup conference in Russia and one of the biggest JavaScript conference, Holy.js. Am I right?
Yes, that's true.
Fantastic meetup. Conference. I said, did I say meetup?
Yeah,
No,
it's conferences.
It's a great conference, actually. Like it's such a huge conference. So without any hesitation, Genia is going to talk about Flutter channel, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm going to actually share his screen right now, and I will leave Genia to you. Please welcome Genia.
Hi, everyone. It's a big pleasure for me to be here, and the biggest advantage of being remote is that you can drink. So let me jump to my slides quickly. So now something completely different, and I will rush through the slides because slides, they are not that important in my talk. So Flutter, the platform. Yeah, my name is Evgeny. I'm GDE and other stuff. My company is Rike. We're doing some kind of like project management solution. So, and the background is really important here. So we work with Dart for 5 years now, and so we have almost 75 Dart developers in our company, and like almost 1.5 million lines of code, of Dart code. So that's a lot. So we have some little background in Dart. And today I will talk about platform channels. So, what if you want to do something, to create something that is not in Flutter? You want to reuse some kind of native code or something like that. So, we will talk about binary channels, about encoded messages, method channels, and event channels. I will I will rush through some of the topics because, frankly speaking, I have a lot of information and there are many topics to cover. So yeah, maybe web if I have time. So and the biggest, sorry, and the most important idea behind channels is that actually there is no magic. Yeah, they they kind of like primitive and obvious, but there are some hidden spots. So let's take a look at the application, right? Why not? So I created some kind of application. Here it is. Here is it. It's some kind of finance bank application. It has just two fields like email address, and you can type actually everything here because it's just a mock. And we can log in. Yeah, and yay, we have 1,000 Wookie coins. So, and application, yeah, it's pretty simple. Simple. We have scaffold, a bar, just material things, and login page with some widgets, with two text form fields and one account page. It's just a mock. Yeah, we have 1,000 Wookie coins, and let's jump into the magic of the channels, shall we? And we will begin from the basics, from the most important one, and it's actually binary channels. So this is the simple overview of the channels. So, and yeah, again, nothing really special about them. Here we have some Flutter framework, some middle layer, some on the iOS side is just Flutter View controller, and here our Flutter engine Android shell. So, and they took into our binary messages. So, and let's take a look at them. And let me switch to the first one. So, oh, let's jump to the second one. Yeah, because it's way better. And I really like Flutter and other stuff, but unfortunately, when you're changing something, you have to do something like this: Flutter packages get, because otherwise our analyzer is just going a bit crazy. So, how to send and receive messages to the native side and to the like, and vice versa, from native to Dart code. It's pretty simple. Here, let's jump into Kotlin code. It looks a bit strange and big, but it's kind of simple. Here we have Flutter engine, Dart executor, and here we're setting message handler. So when something from Dart side sending some messages from the Dart side to the native, we just subscribing to this, and here is the kind of callback. And here on this in this code, what are the most important things? First of all, it's a channel name. It should be consistent across Dart and native code. So, for example, here we have channel in the Kotlin main activity. It's a wikibank/vi, and in our account we have same name. That's the first, I would not say problem, but yeah. So, for example, if I change something here, it will be not okay. Application will don't know anything about the strings and um, in the native code too. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that here we're subscribing to our handler, to our channel, and there is some magic with the messages. Actually, the main idea of this code is to receive some message, parse it, and get double and integer. Because for binary channels, you can use only obviously binary format like double, integer, float, and others. And here I just sending them back to the Dart side, so it's kind of loop. And here I subscribing to this channel. So to send something from Dart to Flutter, we're just using some buffer. It's a right buffer, and we're sending float and integer again. And here's the important thing. This one service binding instance default binary messenger. It's most primitive and actually default one, default binary messenger that you have from Dart side. Of course, you can create instance of some binary messenger by yourself, like a binary messenger, but like in most cases, you will stick to this default one. And we're sending some message to channel name, and the channel name is Wikibank, and some message. Yeah, pretty straightforward. So let's take a look at the code. So yeah, and actually, yeah, the third problem is that of course in Flutter we have hot reload, and it's super nice to have. But the problem is that in the Kotlin part or in iOS part or Android part, we don't have it. So every time you want to some kind of like reload, yeah, stop. Reload Kotlin code, of course, big problem is that you have to like relaunch it. And let's take a look at the application. Yeah, and you know the big problem for me is that it's like you have super ultra speed Ferrari or something, and you're like debugging and you changing the code and hot reload and other stuff. Then when you're developing something in the native code, it's like jumping from Ferrari to, I don't know, old Fiat or any other car. So um, yeah, we will wait. Yeah, it should be there. So, okay, sorry. Breakpoints. It should be, yeah, here, and here's the logs from Flutter. Oh, sorry, from the Android device. So, yeah, and we received some code and sent some code. So it's pretty straightforward and not that complicated. But what I would like to mention, first of here, first of all the messages, all the messaging, working with the messages, it's asynchronous. So no synchronous code here. So everything should be asynchronous with await or I don't know with then and futures. Same from native side. So everything is asynchronous too. Here I don't use any like response, but still. Another thing is that for a binary channel, of course, only primitives allowed, double, integer, and other stuff, and it's not that convenient. But we will talk about other cases later. What else to mention? Here it's a strange thing. Maybe it looks strange. Why to send null? But actually, from the Kotlin side or from iOS side, this null reply is required. You don't It's impossible to send it like this, because by the signature you have to return something from the message handler. Of course, you can return anything you want. What else? How it actually works? Let's take a look at this binary messenger. It's a binary messenger. Sorry. Actually, it encodes everything that you send it to the buffer and then send it to the native site. About threads, the big, I would not say problem, but actually you cannot. Yeah, of course, Flutter and Dart is single threaded, but on Android side, yeah, you can create some additional threads. But unfortunately, all the messages and replies are received and must be sent on the platform's main UI thread. So yeah, and that's it. You can, of course, do some work in the background, but still, you should use like single threads. About exceptions, let's I don't know, send something, throw some exception from the native side. What if we have this kind of like exception? Of course, I should stop this, and I should. So big problem, or not problem, thing that you should know is that what will happen with the application if we, for instance, get some error. Installing, waiting, and yeah. So like here we have some things, but it's really strange. Where is our exception? And actually, here it is. So we have some exception in, of course, in logs, but here on the Dart side, for instance, if I write something like this, like result, and I should print it, result, yeah, yeah, okay, but what? JavaScript, sorry. So, and let's debug it. Okay, so the result is null. So from, if you are dealing with the binary messages and binary channels, any exception from each parts of the application, like from the Dart part and from the native part, will not throw any exception on this side. So you will get null result, yes, but and you will get some exceptions, but unfortunately nothing on the Dart side. You have to create some kind of way to work with exceptions by your own, or use other channels. So yeah, and what else? Lifetime. So this handler, so like for instance here, set message handler, lifetime is it's keeping alive with the Flutter view. So, and actually here in how it works under the hood, it works as just, as you can see, where it is, handlers, there is a handlers, so it's just a map. So how to register or unregister handler is just putting something into map. What does it mean? It means that if somewhere in the middle of your application you will, I don't know, write something like this, sorry, with the same channel name, it means that it will be replaced, and it can lead to some problems, of course, because like it's up to you, and it's your fault if I don't know, you some kind of rewrite this message handler. Yeah, so, and that's it for the binary channels. And yeah, let me wrap up this a little bit. Yeah, sorry. So messages are asynchronous. They should be sent into main threads, and null is required. in the response. Yeah. So, and let's jump from binary messages, because binary messages, they are good, of course, but it's kind of not that convenient to send something with the binary messages. They pretty obvious, and they not encode anything, and they can be faster than others because they don't encode. But the problem is that it's not really convenient to say the binary messages. So let's jump into message channels, right? And let me. Oh, by the way, I totally forgot. Sorry, I totally forgot to show you something about the binary messages. Bum, bum, bum. I I asked a question. So, will we lose some frames in case of, I don't know, heavy animation or anything like that? And why not to check this out? So, where is our application? Because losing the frames and losing the messages, it's not really nice thing. So let me change my code a little bit. So what we have here, it's a kind of like set of counters. So from the dart side, I just creating some where is some kind of counter. Yeah, outcoming counter. I'm just saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And from the Kotlin side, I just parsing this integer, and then just put this integer into the message and send it back. So it's kind of loop. So let's check, will it lose frames in some cases. Yeah, and here I'm checking. So if previous counter is not equal to, sorry, next counter is not equals to previous counter plus one, it means that we lost some frames. And the application is something like this. This is the counter. And what if I will show some kind of like animation? And the animation is where it is. Yeah, here, animated rectangle. So just some kind of animation with a duration of 10 seconds. Yeah, and yeah, looks like everything is okay, and the speed of binary channels is okay for us. And what if we change something like not seconds but milliseconds? Epilepsy warning, sorry for that, and I should restart it. And okay, run. And yeah, so it's like animation of 10 milliseconds. And yeah, it's slowing down a little bit in some cases, but still no lost messages. Yeah, I understand that this benchmark is not great, and maybe a little bit naive, but still, from my expectations and from my experience, yeah, everything is okay. Okay, stop epilepsy, please, and let's jump into the next thing. Let's check the speed of the binary channels, because it's kind of really interesting. Flutter packages get web, and we should restart our application because the Kotlin part has changed. Where it is? Okay. Um, Sorry. Okay, so let's start and build it again and again and again. So here, what I have here, it's actually, again, it's a pretty naive benchmark, but why not? So here in send data to native, I have write buffer, and you, yeah, of course, it's an amazing loop from 0 to 1, but it's intentional. So and yeah, I just when I sending the this 1 byte, I just starting stopwatch. It's just Dart primitive for precise timer. Then I send it, and when I got it back, I just stopwatch, and that's it. So it should show us the speed of the messages. But here's the problem, and maybe it's pretty obvious for Kotlin heavy Kotlin users and but from my side it was totally unclear and totally. Let's take a look at the Kotlin part, right? So from the Kotlin side, I just want to have this message with 1 byte and then loop it back. So like I have Dart executor, binary messenger, and it send it back. Yeah, and it should work, I thought. But you know what? It shows that it's some error. There are some error. But I thought that it's really what can be wrong with this code? It's yeah, come on, it's just Kotlin. And if we take a look at the here at the error, where is yeah. You can see that this message has 0 length, and it's kind of problem. What? And you can post in the chat what do you think? What is the problem? And yeah. Meanwhile, I will open Android Studio and I will show you something interesting. By the way, are there any like Android fans here or maybe Kotlin fans? Would be nice to hear you. Yeah. Where is my Android Studio? So yeah, here is Android Studio, and let's take a look at the Kotlin main. Sorry, activity. So yeah, here it is. It should work, but something is wrong, and yeah, it will build and show and other stuff. But the big problem here, if I try to debug this, connect it. And actually, this thing took, I don't know, maybe 1 day of my life and a couple of gray hairs, because if you're dealing with binary channels and binary messages, it's not that straightforward. Where is my yeah? As you can see, this message that I got from Dart side, message. It's actually a binary buffer, but the problem is in this flag is direct. Yeah, so here this message is in direct buffer, and in the Kotlin, in the Android, and the Java, it's a big difference between direct buffer and indirect buffer. And the big problem here, this Flutter engine Dart executor binary messenger send requires to have actually a direct buffer. So like to solve this problem, has to write it like this, like byte buffer allocate the direct, some black magic of Kotlin with the exclamation marks. And I don't like when code is yelling at me, but here like you have to write this like this. So yeah, and that's a problem with this whole binaries and other stuff. So yeah, that was kind of strange, but and let's return to the, and I will stop this. Yeah, I don't need Android. Disconnect. So let's jump to the speed of the binary messengers, right? And I should start this. What? Ah, yeah. Of course, Flutter packages get. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. Mm, yeah. Thanks, Flutter, but yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at the speed of the binary messages. So here we have 1 byte that jumps to native side and another. So and to send this byte, let me switch from milliseconds. Yeah, one. Give me 1 millisecond. Interlink and other stuff. Waiting, and yeah. in microseconds, because yeah, it's too fast for milliseconds. Yeah, and actually in microseconds, it's something like, as you can see, to send 1 byte. It's I think it's not bigger than 11 15,000 microseconds. Yeah, so something like this, something around 4 milliseconds or so. Is it like big number, or how fast they are? I don't know. I don't think that binary messages or any native channels, they are made for, the jumping back and forth gigabytes of data between native and Dart code. So yeah, I think it's okay. And again, I believe that someone like really experienced developers can, right now they're yelling at the screen like, it's not a benchmark, it's a bullshit. Sorry, but yeah, it's my benchmark. And actually, we don't have much time left, so let me switch to the message channels, because it's more convenient than the binary channels. And actually, it's almost the same. And the biggest difference here is that on top of binary messages, we have message channel. And actually, it looks like, yeah. And I need to, of course, I need to Flutter packages get. And here is our channel name, and how to create message channel is just like this. We're creating basic message channel with some of course types. So here this basic message channel will accept only strings, and of course obviously it will accept string codec, because it's like a string. And as you can see, here we have another argument as binary messenger. So you can provide your own binary messenger to the message channel. And by default, it uses our lovely, yeah, sorry, service binding default binary messenger, so that we used before. And yeah, that's it. And to send something, we're just using send. And it's not is not that complicated as it was before with the binary messages, because actually it's just sending strings. And yeah, it's pretty obvious. Of course, you can use not only string codec. Here you can use actually a lot of codecs. So for instance, here we have binary codec. And yeah, actually binary codec don't do anything, because it's sending byte data through the binary messages, and we don't need to use any encoding or decoding. Standard message coding, it accepts some types, like you can see a list here, like Java Boolean, long, double, string, byte, integer, and others. Yeah, and JSON. So yeah, you can use JSON here. And of course, you can write your own message codec if you need something special. It's just to implement interface with encode message and decode message. So it's just like simple serialization. Um, yeah. How to? Yeah. Here we're sending some data to native, and on the native side, it's pretty straightforward too. So here we have basic message channel, almost the same with the string, and with the channel name and some codec. So yeah, and here I'm setting message handler with some reply. I will not show you how it works, because yeah, I don't have much time, and it's pretty obvious. And to get some information from the native side, we shall use and yeah. And if you have any comments or any questions, just say it in chat. So yeah, yeah. And let's jump to the next one, from the, like, quick wrap up for a message channel. For a message channel, It's almost the same as the binary messenger, but under the hood, it decodes and encodes some messages. Oh, and I would already, yeah, sorry, I already switched. And that's it. And of course, they kind of a little bit slower than binary messages because, yeah, of course, they should encode and decode some messages. And everything else is the same about asynchronous and threads and other. So, but what else? What if we want to invoke some method from the Dart? It's most common case. We want to invoke some method from the Dart side, some platform method from Dart side, and from the Dart side in the to native side. So and yeah, sorry, yeah, I lost. Okay, the sun, yeah, the method channels. And again, it's the same. So on top of the binary messages, we have method channel, and it looks like this. So what if, and it's a cool feature. What if I want to vibrate my phone if my balance is bigger than 1,000 Wookie coins? It would be super nice. So here I have, if our balance is bigger and or equal to 1,000, I will vibrate. And here we have our lovely channel. It's, yeah, again, it's kind of simple. Meta channel with the channel name and without any codecs or anything by default. And we can just invoke some methods, vibrate device, and how it looks like on the backend code. Let me start debugging. Yeah, on the native code, it looks like this. So we have again the same method channel with the method call handler with the callback. And here is, I would say, not that great thing is that here again we are using strings. So here we have vibrate device method, and it's kind of like a switch case statement. So we have to rely on the strings, not on the sum type system, and it's not really convenient because, and I will show you it in a second. Installing builds, waiting, syncing. Yeah, it should be here. And let me cut. Yeah, okay. Let's wait until this scroll. Okay. So yeah, that's unfortunate. Uh, Here we should vibrate in case of if we have more than 1,000 Wookie coins. Yeah. Yeah. So is come on, stop. As you can see, where it is, where it is, where is it? Okay. I will not show you. I will not scroll all this things. So yeah, vibration. Yeah, here it is. Vibrator service. Try to stop vibrating, but there is no vibrator device. Really convenient message. Yeah, so on vibrated device for 2,000 milliseconds. What if I, for instance, I changed some name? I don't know. I forgot the name of the on the method and something like this. The biggest problem here is that I will not get any I don't know type IntelliSense or something like this. I will get and I got some missing plugin exception on the Dart side, but of course I can yeah, of course here I can write something like this. Where is my code? Yeah, I can write something like this, like in try catch, but yeah, it's unfortunately not that convenient. And how to solve this problem I will talk a little bit later. And yeah, um So, and to pass some arguments, of course, we can use just here in invoke method, we can use arguments, and on the Kotlin side, you can use call dot arguments. Okay, and let's jump to the last one, to the event messages. Sorry for being that quick, because yeah, have plenty of things to discuss, but we don't have all time in the world. So yeah, about event channels. Mhm. Ah, sorry. It's on number 9. Again, event channels. It's almost the same as previous. They built on top of binary messages, and they follow the same guidelines and rules. And the biggest difference is that they focus more on events and other stuff. So here, where is our account? Yeah, and again. And so yeah, so here we have our lovely event channel, and yeah, and with the channel name, of course, and the subscription. It's a magic of streams, of Dart streams. So, and that's a kind of really cool feature, and I don't know why banks or finance companies not create this. So yeah, it's copyright under me. So yeah, um, what if I drop my phone, and it would be nice to log out our application, our bank application? So here, with the magic of the event channel, I can do that. So I have event channel, and here's a subscription, it's a stream. And in case of value, and what is value is just one sensor from the Kotlin side, and 10 is more than just a normal velocity of the phone. So, and here on this part, it's kind of not that simple, I would say, on the Kotlin side, because to say, hey, we have some sensor events, we should implement sensor event listener for the and the Flutter activity. And here we have two methods, like on cancel and on listen. So you can I don't know, do some garbage collection or something in case of you don't have any listeners. um, and here is the magic, like it's Kotlin magic, I will not explain it, but here I can send some sensor events on the Dart side, on the Dart side. So let's take a look. So just imagine if you're logged in into your phone. Yeah, you have your, I don't know, some sensitive data, and you accidentally drop your phone. Hup. Well, in that case, it's not dropped, it's elevated, I don't know, maybe with a zero gravity or something like this. But yeah, you just need to work on this value. But yeah, it's, well, yeah. So if I drop my phone, yeah, it will log me out. It's kind of nice feature, and it's made with the event channel. And yeah, what to say about event channels? They almost the same. Of course, here you can use on error for a stream, or on undone. So if you're done with the stream, and you can do anything you want with the stream, where, listen, and other stuff. So it's pretty convenient. Yeah, and that's it from my side, from at least for from event channel. So as I said, they're pretty obvious. Everything is built on top of binary messages. And to wrap this up, some hints. First of all, prefix channel names, and that's the biggest issue here, is that strings. Here we have channel name, and if, for instance, instance, I will, I don't know, name my channel like test, and someone in the world with some library will use the same, yeah, it's a big problem, because during the lifetime of your Flutter application, it will be replaced, and it's not great stuff. And you should use the same name here in Kotlin side or iOS side. And how to solve this problem, because you will not have types or any other things here. One solution, of course, there is no silver bullet. So one solution is to work with the magic of CI system. Maybe keep these names in some kind of, maybe some variables, like I don't know, like my super name, and then during the CI process, replace it by this placeholder with the actual, and replace it everywhere. And the same with the method names. But yeah, it's not that convenient. What else? Look at the contract again. It's about the method names, so you should deal with the contract. And the last one is, if you want to test something. So yeah, for instance, you want to mock something on the Dart side, not to trigger native side. You can, of course, you can do that. To mock this channel, it's pretty easy, because just a stream, just replace it. But for instance, if we have some channel, I don't know, some kind of like basic message channel, yeah, with some strings. Um, Okay, it doesn't matter. You can use this thing on the channel. It's set mock message handler, so you can mock everything, and like it's really convenient, because it's built in feature. And to test these channels, it's nice to have. And yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Zhenya. It was great. So we will get back to you actually very soon in the speaker panel. So without any hesitation, let's go to the next speaker, Dominik. So let me introduce actually Dominik to you. First of all, he is an experienced Flutter freelancer, mobile developer. So, and also I met Dominik for the first time in Flutter Europe, because he's a co-organizer of Flutter Europe and Flutter Marshall. So let me also tell you something very interesting about Dominik, which I'm very excited about. He is, or he was for 6 years, deputy manager of PWSat-2, which is a Polish student satellite, right? And now, right, actually, this satellite is in the orbit since December 2018, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. And its main goal is just to burn in the atmosphere. So hopefully in December this year, PWSat-2 will just burn the orbit. It will be gone forever. But this was like very valuable experience for all of us students working in Warsaw.
All right, fantastic. I'm pretty sure that everyone is waiting for your talk. Internationalization is a very hot topic, so everyone looking forward to that probably. So I will leave you to the speaker, to the audience, and we'll get back to you. Thanks.
Yes, thanks a lot. Thanks, Majid. Thanks all the organizers for carrying out this event. I'm really enjoying the talks and everything. So today we are going to talk about internationalization. As you said, this is frankly very, very difficult topic. Like, I saw dozens, if not more, implementations of convenient internationalization, easy internationalization, and so on in Flutter. Many people, many companies have their own way of doing it. And in this presentation, I would like to show you some of them, like how Flutter actually solves the internationalization localization problem, by default. And later on, I'm going to show you some ways to improve your performance, improve your workflow. I'm going to show you some great tools, some new ones also. So let's quickly just start with some short introduction. So as you said, This is like a photo when I was like when PWZ was leaving Poland. So I've been working with Flutter for over 2 years now. Before it was Xamarin and .NET. You can read some of my blog posts on my webpage, roszkowski.dev. You can find me online on Twitter, wherever you find it convenient. So let us, like, for a minute, just have a face palm because of all the issues that internationalization causes. So as I said, everybody has its own way, and like actually it's pretty good. Like most of them are very similar in the most of them have very same fundamentals. Like vast majority is based on the INTL library that I'm going to talk about today. Some of them are more custom than others, like use some different file formats, use some different paradigms, but usually this works very similarly no matter who is the author of the library and so on. So maybe just clarify at the beginning that today we're going to talk about the internationalization of the app, not the localization, but I'm going to use these words like interchangeably. So usually localization is like a broader topic. So if you create your app and you want to localize it, it means that you want to have a like specific version of the app, of the navigation, of some terms that you use in the app, not only changing the language, but also changing the behavior, changing the layout, maybe adapting the content of the app also to the users. Yeah. So for instance, if you sell some things, you only want to show things that are, for instance, legal in given country or that are available in the given country. Also, you want to show their proper currency. But today we're going to talk about this very narrow part of localization, which is internationalization, which means basically adding support for multiple languages, making the app international, supporting, let's say, all the possible languages that your company has to offer. Yeah. So this is what are we going to talk about today. So the fundamentals of internationalization, which is sometimes abbreviated as I-18N, because there are 18 characters between I and N. So by default, if you don't use any sort of localization features, you have only English support. So all the all the material widgets, all the Cupertino widgets will have only English version. This is how it works by default. Of course, you can add some support for all the basic widgets that Material provides by adding something called localizations delegates, and there are 3 of them. So one is for, like, in general for widgets, the second is for Material, and the third is for Cupertino widgets. And if you use them, you get like support of 77 languages for free. And you need to also use the package called Flutter localizations. Yeah. This gives you the support of 77 languages, so they're like Polish, Swedish, Russian, and so on. So this gives you ability to show, for instance, some labels in a given language without any additional work. So in order to do that, you have to like edit some things in your Material app. So this is like entry point of your application, Material app. And the thing that you need to do is, of course, is to add the Flutter localizations package to your pub spec. And you have to add these 3 delegates to your localizations delegates property in your Material app. So this tells the Material app that your app supports translations of some terms in Material library, in like agnostic widgets library, and Cupertino widgets. Yeah, for instance, if you select text and you see this tooltip showing that you can copy and paste text, this is these translations are taken, for instance, from these localizations delegates. And you should also define what languages your app supports. So for instance, in this case, you have English, Polish, and Chinese. So you can define it in various ways. So for instance, you can only say that you want to support like English in general, but you can of course also specify it a bit clearly. So for instance, you want to support English United States and English United Kingdom, and they, for instance, may have separate localizations delegate. So this is like the very basic setup that you can have. And so here is an app that actually uses this very, very basic setup. So this is shown in a device preview. This is a very simple app that has some containers aligned to left. We're going to show the calendar picker. We have some text. We have set that current locale is English. First weekday in English, which is also defined by material localizations, is 0, which is Sunday. The label for back button is back. For close is close. So very, very simple. This app supports English, Polish, German, Hindu, Arabic, and Chinese. So for instance, we can for instance, show the calendar. So as you can see, here is my calendar. It uses English formatting and so on. So I can switch my device locale. So this is like if you have your phone set to English. Now let's change this to, let's say, maybe Polish. And this app automatically updated, yeah. So I'm going to show you the code in a second. So not many things changed. So for instance, the current locale has changed to Polish. First weekday in Poland is Monday. Here are labels, and actually nothing else has changed. We can also show the calendar, and as you can see here, we have months names in Polish. The formatting is Polish. But for instance, this select date remains in English because this is like hard-coded value, and you can override it in the show date picker method. But here, as you can see, cancel is now annului, and OK is OK. So let me show you the source code for this. This is a pretty simple thing. So this app actually is, let us focus on this part where you have material app. So I'm using this locale taken from this device preview library, but usually you could, for instance, store this in, let's say, shared preferences, or you can store this in memory, however you like. Here are these localizations delegates that I mentioned before, and these are the languages that I support. So for instance, I can easily change this to the English United States if I want, but let's keep it simple for now. And this is my body. So in my body, I just used these two methods to actually this invocation to get my current locale. Yes, so my locale is taken from the localizations widget and by calling locale off. And I can check, for instance, for first weekday, but I can also check for many, many things. So for instance, what is the alert dialog label, or what is the drawer label, and so on and so on. Or I can also format some dates in a given locale. So for instance, if I want to format hour or full date or decimal or whatever. So these are some very useful, handy functions if you use this very basic approach. And here I just have let's maybe take a look at this show datetime picker. So in my show datetime picker here, as you can see, I just provide context and current locale. Of course, if I want, I can override this locale and, for instance, show my date picker always in Polish. So very simple application. So let us take a look, for instance, what happens if we change the language to some more to some different language than Polish or English. So maybe let us check how the app looks like in Arabic. So in Arabic, we have a much like the app looks much more differently. So here I have two containers. One is aligned to the top left. So as you can see, I'm using the alignment class, not the alignment directional. But if I use the alignment directional, then when I change the locale to right to left, so here you can see the alignment directional actually considers, like, takes into account the directionality of a given language. The same happens if we have, for instance, weekday. In Arabic, it's the 6th day. Also here, as you can see, the sentences are now right to left, the same this paragraph. And also if I open my calendar is right to left. Okay, so as you can see, this comes for free if you just add this localizations delegate and if you use them properly in the app. So this is very simple. Of course, if somebody has a language that is not supported by your app, let's say that they have some random language like Greek, yes, so this will always fall back to English by default if you don't provide this in the supported locales. If you want, you can provide all of them, and this will just work like this will just try to use a locale of given user. But in this case, we just support these 6 languages. If you want, you can override the locale for a given subtree. So for instance, this subtree in this container is in Polish always. And I just use a widget called localizations override, and I provide a given locale here. You can, of course, use some variable name, like some taken from the user settings here. So for instance, you may use it if you have some text editor in your app and you want to change the language of this editor, or if you want to, for instance, open some web page in a given locale. Yeah. So this is very useful. Or show calendar in different locale, whatever works. If I change these to, let's say, some different, so as you can see, this doesn't change. But of course, if you develop your app, you don't want to just rely on what Material library and Cupertino library provides you. So you want to provide some custom translations to some terms in your app. So you can have several different approaches to that, and I'm going to show you 2 pretty basic ones, and after that some more complex that you can use in some more complicated apps. So for instance, the first one will be very, very basic. This is actually taken from the example from the Flutter documentation, and the second one will use the intl package, which is very powerful, and I'm going to talk about it in a few minutes. So the very, very simple app localization can be based on actually 2 classes. So the first one, let's call it demo localizations. And this will be our class that just will be storing our translations. This is very, very simple. We are not going to use any files. We're not going to use any remote calls. This is all stored in this very class. So here you can see a very basic static map of string and map of strings. Yeah, so here we have nested maps. And what we have here are the languages that we want to support. So English, Spanish, we can add many more, and some keys, and values. So for instance, here we have only 2 keys, which are title, and here we have some very basic translations. Also, we provide this manually that we want to, for instance, get some translations from this map. So what we do is just we reach to this map, to the given key, Yeah, very, very basic. But actually, if you go further, if you apply some automated processing of translation and so on, this is all based on this very, very basic principle. Of course, this is much more sophisticated later on. But if you want to have very basic translations, if you want to have everything here, this is one way to do it. I don't recommend it, but this is a comparison point to see how much more advanced this can be. Yeah? And this is very unsafe way to have translations. And the second important part of this is that we need to have something called localization delegate, which is a class that will handle the changes of current locale and will provide us with a given translation terms for this locale. So here you have to override 3 methods. If you create this your custom localizations delegate, you have to provide flag is supported. So this is very simple implementation that we just check if given locale is in the supported list. You have to support the load method, And here we just return the synchronous feature, and that's all. And we just return this class that we created a few seconds ago. And we override the should reload method. And here we just provide false. Of course, you could make it much more sophisticated. You can check for some conditions if the given device locale is different, and so on and so on. But in this very, very basic implementation, we do just this. And then if you want to use it, you just provide this delegate to localizations delegates, and you provide the supported locates. And you can use it in your app. So for instance, here you can use a sample of usage. So what I do is just call demo localizations of context.title. So this will just regenerate the title of my app, which is a pretty convenient way to do it. But as I said, these localizations are not the best one. So this is like base point. But let's make it a bit more convenient. Let's make it a bit more automated. So there is this great package called INTL, and actually all the almost all the localizations, internationalizations solutions are more or less based on that. There are some additions, some convenience methods added in some packages, but this is like a holy grail that supports many languages, that has support for number formatting, date formatting, and of course, for ability to handle translations. So like I recommend just to glance over the README of the INTL package, but actually you will just use it like in your daily work very often if you, for instance, have date formatting or number or currency formatting or something else. So if you use the INTL package, you get some tools that are related to this package, like INTL translation tool. So firstly, what you have to do is to create the custom localizations delegate. So of course, there is some kind of boilerplate, but let me show you how actually this looks like. So if you want, this is like a source code also taken from the library documentation. So what you need to do is create this localizations delegate. So here is my class. And again, the only thing that you need to do is to override these three methods, as I shown you before. And the second part is to, sorry for scrolling, is to create this demo localization class, which you can just copy and paste, which will have the strings in a very similar fashion as we saw before. But here we are just not reaching to some static map. We are using the intl.message method. And this will be generated automatically, I think. But very often you have to do it on your own. So what we are going to do is, if you have this custom delegate created, then you have to generate the ARB files with this package. So what you are going to do is just to call Flutter Platform run intl translations extract to ARB. So what it will do, it will generate the ARB file, which is like format used by Flutter and Google to store translation. I'm going to show you in a minute how it looks like. So it will take this keys and will generate the ARB file. So let me show you a sample of this. So actually, this is a sample, this Dart file, sorry. This is a sample ARB file. So as you can see, this is modified today, and this has a key called title and value hello world. There is some annotation that's showing that this is title for the demo application and so on. And if you add some more keys, then you will see this file to be expanded. The second part that you need to do is to send these ARB files, so for instance, this one, to your translator or to some tool or whatever you are using to translate your app. So for instance, you can use some tool like localized repo editor or some other custom tool to translate this. So you get the translations, the values for these keys that you created. And then what you need to do is to use these ARB files to generate the Dart classes that will be used to retrieve this translation. So this one, and here I just run this, this will be used to generate this file, messages underscore en. So this is automatically generated, and this stores all the values and keys that were based on this previous file, which was my localization delegate. Yeah? So here, this is generated to ARB, and then from this you generate this file. And again, this is like a lookup table for messages. What is great is that this supports plural forms, and it supports genders and placeholders. So 3 things for free. Like if you want, you get support for placeholder, you get support for names, genders, and plural forms. Yeah. So this is pretty cool. And the only thing that you need to do is to maintain this and then regenerate everything with these 2 commands. But this is still something that actually I don't recommend to do. This is very error prone. Many things can break during this process. So what I recommend actually is something different. So is it really so convenient? I think not. So what I really recommend is to automate with this with some ready-made tool, so that somebody else maintains. So there are many tools on the market. The one that I find the most convenient is the Flutter INTL extension. This is for VS Code and Android Studio, which is great. Like you don't have to worry about the support. So the maintainers, which are from the Localizely company, they support Android Studio, IntelliJ, and VS Code. So no matter what you use, you should be it should be very easy to use. So what is great? So I have this actually added to my application. My presentation is actually a Flutter application, so I can use I can use this extension during my presentation. Yes. So here is my sample application. Not focus on anything, but here I have some string. So what is great about this library is that if you enable this, so only thing that you need to do is just Flutter INTL, and you just like initialize. So this I have already done. Then you can like add locale, remove locale. You can connect to their tool, which is Localizely, but you can then download and upload your ARB files. But what is great is that this gives some context action. So if I select this text, I can just press command period or control period, and I can extract this term to my ARB files like immediately. So I can just call this up bar title here. This takes like a few seconds, but after a while, this is fixed. Here is a statically typed translation. If I go here, I can see this was added to this file that is also automatically generated, very similar to what we saw before. This has these keys like intro, and here is my key, of course, upbar title. And if I go to my ARB files, here I can see this was added also here. Yes, and what is great is that I can, for instance, add some placeholder, maybe whatever, like count. And of course, I need to do it also in German. And if I recreate this, like save this, the extension automatically picks up that I added something. And here, as you can see, this was automatically changed to the object count. And if I go back here, I can provide this count here. And this will be, of course, used in this application. So if I go there, here you can see this is number 2. If I switch here to number 5, automatically changes, and I can make as many changes as I want. So I can switch my language. Of course, this is not translated in German, so let me just translate this also in German. I don't know how are files in German, but yeah, I can easily. I think that I need to hot restart just to make it work. Yes, so this works like after hot restart, I have all my translations loaded. What is another amazing feature is that this is integrated with their paid tool. You don't have to use it, but this is pretty convenient. So they have this paid tool. Let me show it. This is called Localizely. This is free for open source, but if you have customers that want to add some translations, let me just make it bigger. So this is just an app that is paid with some plans. So for instance, I can change this to some other word. Maybe just add something here. Save. I can now just download these new ARB files. These are being downloaded at the moment. I think I need to hot restart the app just to make it work. Go back to my app, and something is not working. Oh, I think this is not working because I changed this only on the. I haven't. So this was overridden right now. I will need to fix this. Yes, so. I might selected the wrong. Let me check this. Yeah, here it is correct. Let me just check if there is some error. No error. So it seems that I must have done some error. Either way, like there is some issue with this feature. This should be like, as you can see here, is updated but not there. Maybe I have some problem that is causing this to not reload. Maybe I'm not using this actually here. Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, so I was not using this. Of course. And here I have my login. Sorry about that. Yeah, now it works, of course. So that was my stupid error. But as you can see, this is pretty easy to set up. And so, for instance, you can use the Localizely, you can use Poe Editor, which is like another commercial product. But there are also some great products that were announced recently. So RB5 is a tool that is open source. And here I have this deployed on my own computer. This is a Dockerized application written in Laravel, which is a PHP framework. So this is not Flutter app. But what is great, this supports, I think, most of the ARB specification. So here I have like some languages. You can, of course, add more languages if you want. So I think that there is now support for all the languages that are supported by INTL package. Yes, so whatever you want, you can add any language. This is self-hosted solution, so you cannot like go to any web page, but you can, for instance, deploy it on some cloud service like Google Cloud or Azure or whatever. This has some support for user management. You can have multiple projects. This is actually done by Albert Wolfson. So let me just show you this RB5. So here you can find more about this. You can clone this. You can run this on your own in Docker containers. So this is one solution that is really, really great. It allows you to export these files. There is supposed to be some either package or extension, not sure just yet, that will allow to integrate this with your Flutter project. It will regenerate this the same way as Flutter INTL. So actually, you can use this with the Flutter INTL extension. So what you just need to do is to, for now, manually export all the files. Yeah, so you can export this, then just save this to your project directory, and you should be able to regenerate the translations based on this exact file. So you don't have to use the paid solution. you can use open source self-hosted ones. There is another great package called Easy Localizations. This is like an extension wrapper around the INTL library. This has support for many other file formats. I'm not using this. This is like too extreme for me. This is like too far from the typical Flutter approach. But of course, if you want, you can use some of this solution. This has very great documentation, like top-notch. There are also some other tools, so like you can use YAML if you want, like, but actually, no YAML. Yeah, like I don't recommend using YAML. There is a Google Sheet localization generator. If you want, you can just store the translations in Google Sheets, use the translate function in Google Sheets, and have the translations made automatically by Google Translate. This is from Alois Daniel. There are some great articles. This is one of them that I can recommend. You can also check out my article about internationalization. There is a video that shows how I do it. And I find this is pretty convenient. I'm using here the custom scripts to download this, but actually you can use the extension if you want. You can hook up to any provider like Poe Editor or Loco or Crowdin or Arbify in the future if it will be hosted somewhere. So many things. So check this out. There is also another great way, which is called IXEN. This is also a very nice tool. This is still in development phase, but this allows to have like you need to add some projects. I don't know why it doesn't work. So this allows to add some projects. This is actually made in Flutter, yes, and runs in Flutter Web. So if you want, you can just create new project. A bit early in the development phase, but yeah. This is called IXN. Okay, so just not to like very important remark. If you want to add the languages support in iOS, you also need to add them in the Xcode. So here's the important part that you need to add. If you add your language, you have to also add it here. Summary. This is like a wall of text, but in short, if you like want to know more about the internationalization process, like everything is based on the delegates. There are many ways to do the internationalization. You can use custom, very basic localization delegate, more complex with JSON, XML, whatever you like. I recommend to use ARB files for now. There are some people that work on support, for instance, for the PO files, which are like they are used, for instance, in WordPress and other open source projects. INTL is used to also automatically regenerate the Dart files from ARB files and vice versa. There are some other great tools like VS Code, Flutter, I18N, JSON extension. There is Google Spreadsheet way of doing this. If you are using if you support multiple languages, check how your app looks like in different directionalities. So I recommend just to check out the device preview widget and change the locale, for instance, to Arabic, to Hindu, to wherever that has different directionality. And one very important remark, just to finish this presentation, add the support for internationalization as soon as possible. Like if you start your new project, just add the support right away, like, and try to add translation terms as you develop your app. It will be much easier to have this ready when you want to publish or add another language to your app. Even if you support only one language at the beginning, it will be much easier later just to add support for new language. The translators won't have to wait for the translation terms to be translated, and so on and so on. So this is like my very last remark. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. So if you want to learn more, find me on Twitter, find me on my webpage. Thanks a lot. I hope that you will have a great next presentation.
Thank you very much, Dominik. So I think it was very great. So I learned a lot today. Thank you very much. There was some questions in the comments. So we will get back to Dominik actually in the speakers panel. So meanwhile, by until a speaker as panel. So before I introduce the third speaker, our awesome speaker, so I'd like to mention two different links. First of all, Flutter Norway has a Twitter account. So if you like to follow us to get the latest update and information, you can follow us on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter and you are a big fan of Slack, maybe, we also have a Slack channel, which all of the local Flutter developers are there from all over the Norway. We are a small community so far, but feel free to join our Slack channel and ask your question from the Flutter community. So let's go to the third talk. I'm going to introduce you our speakers, our awesome speaker, Alexander, or in Russian, Sasha. Okay, let's call him Sasha from now. Who is Sasha? Sasha is actually a passionate developer with over 15 years of experience in Java, microservices, architecture, a lot of things. And recently, he became a Flutter Google developer expert. So he's very into Flutter these days. I bet he's one of the most passionate people about Flutter these days. You know, if you have any question, you can reach out to him for sure. How are you, Sasha?
Fine, thank you. It's nice to be here.
One thing about Sasha. First of all, I met Sasha in person a few times. Very nice person. You have to meet him in person. I hope next time he will be in Norway in person. But secondly, he's also running a few podcasts. One of them is Flutter Dev Podcast. Probably he will share some information later at the end of the talk. And also he's a co-organizer of GDG Moscow. So are you ready, Sasha?
Yes, of course. Thank you
All right.
again.
So I think everyone is ready for this wars of state management. What is it? Let us know. The stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here. This is my first visit to Norway. I hope my second visit, will be a bit more offline. And today I will speak about Flutter architecture, or how to say Flutter state management. But I wanted to start from this slide. This is about me. This is me about 3 years ago. I was a Java developer, worked with microservices, sometimes with Android, but I've met Flutter and fell in love. But today we are talking not about me, we're talking about you. And as all of you know, Flutter is not a cross-platform framework only now. Flutter is multi-platform framework. It means this is anything. And especially for people who haven't tried people yet, maybe there are these people. Try it, and I hope you will fall in love to Flutter with Flutter like me. And let's start. First of all, what is your first association with name of language Dart? This is mine. The name of Darth Vader is actually spelled differently, but who cares? Darth Vader is awesome. And I suppose a lot of people have such association like mine. And don't be surprised if I mention Star Wars in my talk today. Let's start about architecture. As all of you know, the architecture of application, I think one of the most important part of application, because depending on it, you can have a lot of difficulties with wrong choice or a lot of good things if your choice is correct. And there are a lot of different architectures. For example, you know MVP, MVC, MVVM, and a lot of old architectures. For example, MVC was created in 1974, as I remember. But if you try to Google Flutter architecture, you will find a lot of different words. Vanilla, scoped model, Dart, Flux, MobX, Redux, Block. Can be confused. And how to choose the correct architecture? Fortunately, a lot of developers in Flutter community made this choice instead us. I think the most popular approaches in architecture, in Flutter architecture, is Redux and Block. As I know, in this moment, MobX is growing using of MobX, but this is out of the scope in my today's talk. We will talk about Redux and Block. I haven't found something looks like a logo of Block, and I put Lego Block here. I think is nice. But we remember about Star Wars today, and it means a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, state management force. Let's try to understand what approach is better, maybe what is most convenient for what kind of tasks. Let's start with Redux. Redux is a JavaScript library that was created by Dan Abramov in 2015, and it's commonly used for frameworks like React, like Angular in front-end development. But we can use it with Flutter applications creation as well. Let's look to the scheme of Redux approach. We have a store that contains state of our application and UI that subscribed to the store and represented the state in the UI, displays that state. First of all, we should initialize our store with first initial action, and after initialization, UI will start to representing the store. And when we have our UI on the display of our device, we can interact with our UI and create other actions in applications. This action is processed by reducers. Reducers is pure functions that working with action and current state and generate new immutable state and put it to the store. And this is a Redux cycle. We have action for any kind of interaction that processed by reducers and generate new immutable store. That's all. And of course, initial action has own reducer as well. And if we take a look to the classical Redux scheme, if you try to looking for Redux scheme in the internet, usually you will find something like this. In previous slide, I've skipped middleware. Middleware is the one more entity in a Redux approach. This block is using for interaction with third-party libraries, with networking and other kind of working out of the main cycle. Especially for better understanding of this approach, I've created application. This is just not very difficult application. It's just list of speakers, speaker details, list of talks, and speakers rating. Sorry for Russian language here. This application was created for one Russian conference named Mobius. This is a reason why everything here is Russian, but it's just content. It's possible to change it at any moment. Let's choose what do we need for starting to implement it with Redux. We need to choose what we will keep in our state, what kinds of action we will use, what kind of interaction with third-party libraries and networking we will have, and what kinds of reducers we need to create. First, state. We need to have is loading flag there, especially to understand do we already have content or content is loading now. And of course, content, speaker list, talk list, and active tab. Active tab is just information about what tab is active now on the screen. What kind of actions do we need? We need initial actions for loading speakers and loading talks. We need to initialize our state with these actions to start speakers and talks loading. And this loading will be will go in middleware part, and our middleware can return to us success and data or error and no data. Especially for this, we have two kinds of action for the both kinds of content. If everything is success with speakers, so we will get speakers loaded actions. This action will be generated by middleware. And the same with talks, talk loaded action. If something will be wrong, middleware will generate other actions, speakers not loaded and talks not loaded. And for interaction with the user, we have UI actions. If user wants to update speaker rating, UI will generate update speaker action, update talk action for update information about talk, and update tab action, and will be generated in case user want to change current tab. About middleware. I've already told about this kind of entity. We need to create two middleware, one for interact with speakers repository, and second with for interact with talks repository. And middleware will start work when get action like load speaker action to start loading, update speaker action to update. When this action will come to middleware, middleware will request repository methods to update or load this information or update this information from somewhere from repository. This can be REST API, it can be local data, or whenever. Reducer. This pure function need to generate new state by action and old state. We need to create 4 reducers. One for changing is loading flag, one for changing speakers list, one for talks list, and one for active tabs. For all of parts of our state, we need separate reducers for independently one of another. Okay, after creation all of my previously mentioned things, we have a project structure like this. From first view, it's really difficult. A lot of files with a lot of different entities. Let's try to check on the scheme how it will work with speaker list. We have speaker list part in our store that represent speaker list widget. When our middleware generates speaker load action, it's processed by speakers reducer and generate a new state with the speaker list. When somebody wants to update speaker action, he or she tap to the new value of action, and update speaker action is generated. Processed by middleware and for speakers reducers, and speakers reducer generates new state with new speaker list with updated speaker. But what about already prepared libraries? As I mentioned before, library for JavaScript was created by Dan Abramov. And what about libraries for Flutter? Yes, we can look for them on pub.dev. By the way, anybody knows why pub.dev named pub? First of all, you can think that it's something about public. This is just short, the first part of word public. But no, this is the true. On what a logo of that language looks like? Yes, it's the part of dart game, and where we are playing in the dart in the pub. This is the reason why a place for Dart libraries named pubdev. There are a lot of different implementations of Redux. I've taken Redux by Brian Egan. I think it's the most interesting implementation of this approach. And this library has a Flutter favorite achievement, and it means that a lot of people agree with me that Brian Egan's Redux is a very good solution. But it doesn't mean that other solution is bad. You can check and compare different Redux approaches. I haven't done it. I'm tried just with Brian's version. Okay, what pros and cons we have with the Redux approach? Okay, first of all, logic is separated from UI code. Second, we have unidirectional data flow and immutability of the state. The result is easy to test, and if you was a front-end developer and worked with React, it's a really familiar approach. But if you has Android development background or something else, Redux is not familiar approach, and it's really difficult to understand from the scratch. This is the first of the cons, learning curve. And as you remember, there are a lot of different parts in the flow. You have actions, reducer, middleware, etc. The second con is flow complexity. And the last of cons is a lot of boilerplate there. This is a price for this is a nice solution. And let's compare it with block. From first sign, the looks like similar. We have a block with, for example, initial action that keep our state, and UI subscribed on this block. But we don't need initial action. We can use it, and we can don't use it because this is a block. We can develop any kinds of business logic inside it without a lot of rules like Redux. But working with UI is really the same like Redux. We generate action. Action is processed by block. Block changed UI state, and UI is changed. But scheme is looks easier. Why? Because all processes is hidden inside block, and you can write it wherever you want. This is classical scheme that you usually can meet in the internet. Just backend, block, and stream. The scheme is easy because I've told you before. Everything that we have difficult is inside the block. Especially for compare, I prepared the same application that previous, but created with using block. If you will compare how it works in your mobile phone, you can't find difference because there is no difference except the name of application. On the block application, we will find rating block demo app, and there Redux rating block Redux app, rating Redux demo app, or something like this. Okay, let's choose. What do we need for block? We need state as well. We need action as well, and we need blocks. Let's separate states for speakers and for talks, and make two separate blocks for the both parts of application, for the both tabs. It means we need two set of actions: loudspeaker action, low talk action. As you can see, their set of actions almost the same as in Redux. Or we can, for example, use one set of action for the both block because functionality of the both blocks almost this. Because the both block has the same set of actions. We need load the content. We need to understand how content is loaded, and we need to update this content. Only 4 actions for any tab. And finally, block. I can't paint something how it will be inside, because you can write your logic as you wish inside block. This is the pros and from one side, and the cons from other side of the block. But if you take a look to our project, looks easier, because as I mentioned before, all difficulties inside the block parts. What about implementation of block? We have nice library by Felix Angelov, a block and Flutter block, that has Flutter favorite achievement as well. But in my example, I haven't used this implementation because I think it's better to create your own implementation. This will reduce amount of boilerplate in your implementation. Sometimes it's not necessary to use a common library in block approach, because you can write everything as you wish. But if you have difficulties with understanding, you can use blocks of Felix Angelov. This will reduce amount of work as well, but increase amount of boilerplate. What about pros and cons? The logic separated from UI code, such as in Redux, is the same. Easy to test and reuse. It's reactive because based on Stream API. And what about cons? It's necessary to have understanding streams or reactive X approach to understanding of block creation. And boilerplate again. And as I told before, you can reduce amount of boilerplate when you will create your own implementation. And this approach was recommended by Google in 2018 18 because this is approach especially created for Flutter. And what we understood after this description of the both approach. Approach is very similar. Logic is separated from UI. It's easy to test and to scale, but not easy to understand from a snap. It's necessary to spend time to understand the both approaches. But I think Redux is a little bit less flexible and has more limitations because you just has a flow and you need to follow all steps in this flow. Block gives more freedom because you can implement everything as you wish. You can make more than one streams with state or whenever you can make immutable state or make not immutable state. You are free with your choice how you will implement everything. And this is the reason why you can shoot yourself in the foot because where you have more freedom, you have more space for a mistake. And I suppose that in our state management vars, Redux is on the light side of the force and block in the dark side of the force because Redux has more rules and more limitations. But it's just my opinion, and maybe I like when you have a more freedom and less limitations. But what should you do if you don't need the complex approach like Redux and block? If you just have very simple application, a lot of people when started work with Flutter and read something about block and about Redux, try to implement these approaches in very, very simple applications. But I guess it's not a good choice because we have provider. Provider is a library that firstly was created not as a state management solution. It was just library for providing values through widget tree. But it's possible to use it as a solution architecture approach as state management when you don't have a complex solution. You have just not a lot of screens and state in one place, and you can watch for your state without opportunity to break something. Not just UI, you can change the state and state provide his value to UI. And you can, for example, keep their immutable state as well. If you want to check how much easier to use provider, I have third implementation of the same app. It's rating provider demo app, and you can find it in the same repository. I will provide the link in the end of my talk, and you can compare. There are a lot of different implementation of provider, and each of them can be used for different approach. You can find information about it on pub dev site. But you can take a look to the project with provider implementation. As you can see, is the easiest, the simplest in comparing with previous two. But all logic is hidden inside rating change notifier. But we have almost we don't have boilerplate here. About pros and cons, logic is clearly separated from UI code and easy to manage, but it's easy to make necessary updates as well. You need to be careful with your implementation because here you don't have unidirectional flow that can keep you and defend you from mistakes. And this approach is recommended by Google as well. Implementation you can find on pub.dev, and it was created by Ramirez Le, and the last version, as I know, Philip Krasik helped him in implementation. And this package is Flutter favorite as well. Okay, we have researched three architecture approach for Flutter. Who is winner? What approach is the best? I have no answer here because it depends on your task, on your applications. If you have not very difficult task with not complex business logic, it's a best solution, but decision, I guess, to take provider for this. And if you have more complex solution, you should choose what is your site, light or dark. But if solution very complex, I think Redux will be more safe than block because defend you from stupid mistakes. This is the final slide. Thank you for your attention. This is two links. Second is my Twitter, and the first is a link to a repository where you can find implementation of the all three solutions with block, with Redux, and with provider, and you can take a look and compare them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I guess now it's time to bring all the awesome speakers to the panel. Let's all come here. Hello again.
Hi.
Thank you very much for this awesome today. I don't want to actually keep our audiences waiting, so that's why I immediately go through the questions. There are a few questions actually. So the first one, I guess it's for Dominik. So it says, any recommendation on the best way to provide user language location selection UI and local state management across sessions?
Okay, thanks for this question. So regarding the UI, so this is very custom. So what I usually do is some kind of drop down that has supported locales as a list, and then if you want to just load the current locale, you can do it in several ways. So one way is just to use the localization delegate and just call load on this localization delegate. So if you take a look at the documentation of the INTL package, then there are some examples. And if you want to keep this across sessions, so like the very simple way is just to store this in shared preferences of the user. You can, of course, use some other way, like just save it to Hive, to Moore, or whatever you use for your persistence, because otherwise the locale will be overridden on startup, yes, if you don't have any way to store the selected locale.
Awesome. So another question is actually for Zhenya. Is there any limitation to the Flutter Platform channel?
Well,
or any limitation that you can think of? Any scenario or something?
It's actually a good question, because like the biggest limitations that I'm aware of is, first of all, it's a thread. I mean, so it's must be the main thread or UI thread for the application. Any other limitations, like can you create thousands of them, or any other resource limitations? As far as I know, there are no such limitations as like you cannot create, I don't know, millions, but why do you need so big amount? Any other? No, I don't think so. There are some limitations in terms of data, again, as the byte channels or string channels or others, but nothing really special about it.
Okay, awesome, fantastic. Another question is actually for you, Sasha. So where to put use cases with Redux? So middleware, reducer, or another layer of abstraction on top of Redux, or maybe there is no place for them. Perhaps there are some places.
Good question. Use case. What do you mean that's use case?
And maybe I should also show you the previous comment of this guy. He said that I like things like DDD and hexagonal architecture and use cases which comes from the best useful part, right? So my huge curiosity guides me towards the Redux, and I'm a bit confused. And the question is now, where to put use cases with Redux, middleware, reducer, another layer of abstraction? Perhaps any of other speakers, if you want to jump in and answer the question, feel free.
Actually, I remember one talk from one great speaker from the previous startup with the DDD in the name. Yeah. And actually, yeah, maybe Majid, you can answer this question. Well, frankly speaking, from me personally, I'm not a big professional in DTD and use cases, so I don't know that.
Yes, unfortunately, me too. In Redux, you put I don't know what use cases, but you put all logic in combination of your reducers and middleware. It's all of them is clearly separated. You just have action and previous state, and you have pure function that change your state in one way when get this kind of action, and you have huge set of, or not huge, big set of reducers that can do only one change when have this kind of data, and you just plan all of your possible situations and prepare reducers, and in the result everything will work. So it's I understand it sounds weird, yes, but it works.
All right. Well, let me just maybe quickly tap on that a little bit. Well, it really depends on if you are actually correctly architect your application with those patterns that you mentioned, especially with the DDD and like clean architecture and hexa, like the onion architecture. Perhaps you need another layer, which is probably the application layer. And you just need to keep your state management like Redux without these use cases purely in presentation layer, because those changes in state management, they just reduce or they yield a UI change. So those use cases, they need to be in a different layer. So that's what I can say in short. But for sure, if you want to continue the discussion on that, feel free to reach me out. I'm happy to answer more and elaborate more. Okay, let's go to another question. So another question is from Dominik, and I think it's for Genia.
Interesting.
Any good tricks to improve debugging performance of native plugin? Maybe all of you can answer, probably.
Maybe Dominik can answer this question.
Maybe not answer, because like I was working with some native plugins recently, and like both in Java and Kotlin and in Objective-C. So I kind of found this process a bit cumbersome. It took a long time just to rebuild the app and so on and so on. And I was wondering, maybe like the better way to test plugins would be to debug plugins, actually, to be just have like native example running this plugin, or maybe some, because usually the best way I think is just to have some test cases in native platform, but maintaining them can be a bit like not so convenient. So like this question to you, Evgeny, like what is your approach when you do the native plugin development?
I would say the best way is to think about it like a black box. So you have your contract for from their side or vice versa. So the best way maybe to follow some kind of like TDD and cover this contract. So I definitely know that, I don't know, my native code will have two methods with some input values or output, and that's it. Cover this with tests and like treat it like a black box, and test and cover and debug everything from their side itself. Not, of course, it's better to have some kind of like end-to-end testing or debugging, but it's really painful to work. Like for Flutter developers, we usually develop, for me personally, like you write one line and then you look at the result and then you write another line, you drop something there, and that's it. It's because it's super quick and easy. But for Flutter, for native plugins, it will not work that way, at least for now. So just write everything, cover with the tests, and then go straight to wonderland of Dart code.
Awesome. So let's go to another question, perhaps for Dominik. And someone is very excited about your presentation and see what they're saying. It says that, wait, so if I create my app in Portuguese, English is supported by default, and I don't need to do a lot of stuff, just write code somewhere to trigger that? Is that simple?
Maybe it's not so perfect, but what I meant by that English is supported by default is that, for instance, you have this kind of some default values for some buttons like close, cancel, back, maybe there's a button that like there are translations for month names, for day names, and so on. So these like come for free if you enable the Flutter localizations package. So if you use the calendar picker, and you want to support various month names or something like that, then this comes for free. Of course, the app won't be translated by you by Flutter from Portuguese to English, but with some solutions, like the one with Google Translate support, with Google Spreadsheets, perhaps you could just upload the Portuguese terms to Google Spreadsheets, just use the translate function in spreadsheet and have the app more or less translated to English for free. Yeah, of course it depends on the complexity and so on and so on. But yeah.
And Dominik, does it work on web?
Yeah, I think that this works on web. I have my presentation running. Like, if you go to the link, let me find this link quickly. So if you open my presentation on web,
in the meanwhile, I can ask another question.
Sure.
Yeah. Can I proceed with the questions?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Dominik, so what do you think? What is the best way, or maybe you can share your experience, how to work with some kind of like localization team? Because, for instance, how to integrate it into CI system. I don't know. Your application should be translated to 7 languages.
So I worked with apps that were translated like to 4 or 5 languages. It was like Russian, Ukrainian, Polish, English, and usually we like often had some issues with translators, like some of the translations weren't ready and so on. So usually what we had several approaches. So for instance, if we didn't have any translations ready in Poe Editor or in Localizely or whatever, like we used to use Poe Editor, but right now I use Localizely. So when something is missing, so usually I either fall back to my default language, which is usually Polish, sometimes English, but usually Polish. Yes, so the user will see the version in Polish if something is not translated, or I like try to show, especially in test version, that this term is missing, and I just ping the translator team to have it translated. And like the one way that I recommend is just to have some separate tool that is used to store translations. Most of them are paid. Like you have to pay for some plan to have multiple users. So both Poe Editor, Localizely, I think Crowdin, all of them require paid plans to have more than 1 or 2 users. Maybe this new one called RPFi will change something because this is open source and self-hosted. But yeah, like either way, you have to pay like $20 or $30 a month just to have this ability. But I really recommend to have it. Some tools allow, for instance, for some reviews for translations. I think that even some of them, like Localizely, allows to push the translation over the air, so you don't have to recompile your app to have translations updated in the app. So this is pretty great feature, but this is much more advanced than what I wanted to show. But yeah, like there are like many approaches, and like whatever tool you use, I think this will be a very big improvement.
Yeah, I can share our experience. For instance, we have 9 official translations and 9 official languages, and I don't know, a couple of unofficial. So we usually gather all the ARB files with the pub Intel translation extract to ARB, and then special task in CI. So if there are new keys in these ARB files, we just compare them. So we send it to Crowdin. It's not paid ad, so it's just another tool. You can use whatever you want because all of them have API. So yeah, and just it goes straight to translation team, and then this the same Crowdin have API to extract new keys, and we add it to a repo just with the same robot. It's not that complicated. So it's fully automated process.
Nice.
Fantastic, fantastic. Very good questions and answers. Thank you very much. I'd like to actually wrap up right now. We are a little bit actually behind the schedule, but thanks for all of you who are actually watching us right now. You're all awesome. So I bet that you can follow all of these awesome speakers on Twitter or any other social media. And if you have questions, you can definitely reach out to them. I know that they are all open for answering your questions. So, and don't forget that to join our Twitter or Slack channel if you like to get in touch with local Flutter and Dart developers and get the latest update about our community here locally in Norway. And with that said, I like to thank you again, speakers. Great. Without you, this meetup couldn't be happen for sure. And thank you for presenting and sharing your knowledge. And goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Majid. Bye.